What's up, speaker fam? Welcome to the Speak Organized podcast. Today's episode is all about niching and services. This is one of the most important aspects of building your professional organizing business is knowing exactly what you're going to be doing other than the obvious decluttering and organizing. There's various other services that we as professional organizers can provide to our clients. And so today's guest has got two very unique and useful service options that you can add to your toolkit. So if that's something you need a little bit of help with, which I feel like we all do, then I encourage you to stick around and let's get into it. What's up and welcome back to the Speak Organized podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Summers, professional organizer, decluttering expert, and ADHD organizing specialist. I like to speak organized to give you the tools to conquer your clutter, live life with more purpose, and learn all about the business of tidying. Do me a favor, however, you're here today, look at the screen of your device and give that subscribe button a tap. And that will make you an official member of the Speaker Fam, and I would be honored to have you on board. If you're an Apple Podcast user, you can also feel free to leave us a raving 5-star review and give us a little bit of feedback. We would so appreciate the support. And if you're one of my YouTube viewers, don't forget to give this video a big old thumbs up and tap that little notification bell so you are notified every time I post new content each week. Now, whether you are a new member of the Speaker Fam or you've been around the block with me for a few years, I aim to provide top quality content and resources for you so you feel supported throughout your journey. So in my effort to do that, I'm going to get you up to speed on all the latest special offers. You have the opportunity to schedule an affordable consultation with me to get all of your questions answered. For real, nothing is off the table. And I would be honored to strategize with you and provide you with tons of resources during our call. I am serious about my mission to help you successfully start your own business and help you overcome any fear or doubt you have in your ability to make home organizing your new career. It was the best thing I ever did, and I would love to help you do it too. My schedule fills up quickly, so be sure to click the link in the description or the pinned comment to book your call before all of my slots are full for the month. And if you're ready to get paying clients in the door faster, you're going to need a streamlined process to onboard your prospects. And I have taken all the guesswork out of doing that. What to ask potential clients during consultations, what to put in your agreements, getting customer reviews, and more with my signature Pro Organizer Forms pack. These are 9 done-for-you forms that are customizable in a free Canva account, and I'll even show you how to set up that account if you've never used Canva before. These forms will save you days, possibly weeks worth of work researching and drafting critical documents to run your business professionally, and they're specifically designed for our industry. All of my YouTube and podcast fam get an exclusive discount, YT Pro 8, and that will get you $8 off at checkout. Lastly, if you are totally intimidated by using social media for your business, I have a great class that you can watch on your own time called the I Speak Organized Social Media Method. It includes 5 20 to 30 minute lessons that will help you come up with endless post ideas for the most popular platforms, including easy Reels and TikTok video ideas, how to boost your following and engagement with people who actually like and share your content, how to post consistently without spending hours on social every day with my signature content planner that you'll receive for free at the end of class, and a breakdown of all my favorite tools and software. I've made it super accessible and affordable for you. And of course, you get a bonus discount for being part of my Speaker Fam, ISO Social 5 at checkout. Okay, Speaker Fam, I'm pleased to be joined by my lovely guest, categorically Caroline. She is based out of Northern Virginia. I guess that's where you would be.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I just want to welcome you to the show and have you introduce yourself to our lovely family. Welcome, Caroline.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And you're right. I am based in Northern Virginia, and I'm technically in Prince William County, but I travel all over the Northern metro area. So
Right on.
yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Happy to have you. And we're going to dive in and talk about some things that I know a lot of people in our community ask a lot of questions about. And I'm going to let you kind of do all the talking there. So, but before we get into some of that stuff, I want to know a little bit more about your business background. So just give us a brief rundown of how you started your business and what you were doing previously to professional organizing. That's always interesting.
Yes. Yeah. So before I became an organizer, I was a high school English teacher. So I was a teacher for about 10 years. And long about 2020, there was something going on in the world. I can't remember what it was. But that was a kind of a transition in my life. Well, like I think a lot of folks started to kind of reevaluate, like, what am I doing? And is it still making me happy? And, I wanted something different at that point. Although I still loved the act of teaching. I still loved coaching and helping people, go from one way of thinking or doing or acting and then kind of helping them think through some different ways. So I left teaching in 2021 and I started out thinking, oh, well, what am I going to do now? What can I transition into? And I did a lot of soul searching, a lot of researching from like a job market perspective. And I'd always heard of professional organizing, but I didn't know anybody in the field. I never met a person. So I actually started on Facebook and I joined a couple groups and I really was observant about people's experiences around the country. And I realized like, oh, this is a whole industry and this is a whole community of people. And like, this is something I might enjoy doing. So I started out working kind of as a junior organizer for an established company out here. And just to really see if that's something I wanted to do. And I was super upfront with the owner and I said, hey, I might want to open my own business. She was like perfectly fine because I was just a contractor. So I did that for about 6 months, 9 months, and I realized, yep, I love it. I'm going to do it. And I come from a family of small business owners. Some of my other relatives own other kinds of businesses, and yeah, I just leapt in and started my own. I just love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it is the best thing ever, especially when you've come to the realization that you want to be self-employed and you know all of the different things you're going to be doing as a business owner, obviously not just organizing. I've been talking about that a lot on my channel and across all different social media platforms and with my coaching clients. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's one thing that I always encourage people, just as like a little side tip, that if you're not entirely sure that being a business owner is for you, do exactly what Caroline did. Go work for somebody else for a little bit. I employ people that are upfront with me as well, that they're interested in maybe starting their own business. And I'm totally cool with it because we can all use the help and it's good for back and forth referral and it works out well because it's a good community of people, very supportive, at least in my experience. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you said, there's a difference between enjoying the work of organizing and running a business.
Yes.
So you really be ready for all the entrepreneurial side of things and registering your company and paying taxes and bookkeeping and all those things. So that was hard, but I actually got a business coach, and I met that person pretty early on, and he and I still meet every week, and it's just great. So, there's lots of help out there for small business development, startups, and stuff.
So true.
Have to reach out for help.
Yeah, absolutely. Coaching is like the number one tool that I always recommend to people too. And I also have a coach that I meet with every single week that I have known for years. It's very similar to you. And it's been such a game changer for me. And that's why it's nice to be able to pass that information on to my coaching clients. So kind of moving on a little bit, because we're gonna start diving into the meatier questions here. But first, I just want to know what a typical work week looks like for you these days and kind of how it's different. Obviously, you working as a contractor on site is very different than running your own business, as we touched on. So how is your work week different now than it used to be? And what does it kind of look like now?
Yeah. Well, when I first started, it was a lot of working on the business, developing a website, social media presence, and getting all my paperwork and legality stuff in a row. So that was very time consuming in the beginning. And it actually took me, I want to say about 3 months to get my very first customer. And once I got my first customer, then I started it was kind of a slow build, honestly. It wasn't like, ta-da, I'm a business owner, like all these people want to work with me.
Yeah.
So it was, I had to build my name. I had to get brand recognition. I had to really network a lot. And nowadays, I think, well, the two biggest traffic sources for me are word of mouth referrals and Facebook. I do a lot of social media work in terms of belonging to community groups. And, I know I've networked a lot with people. So typical work weeks, I'm typically with clients 4 to 5 days a week. And I only right now, because I had a son in high school, I was only doing 1 session per day. So I was able to do a little networking in the morning, do my client work throughout the middle of the day. And then I have my administrative stuff in the evening.
Hmm.
But now that my son's graduated high school, I'll be able to kind of have 2 sessions with clients per day. So, and because of where we live in Northern Virginia, there's a lot of traffic and there's like a lot of commuting time involved. So I do spend quite a bit of time in the car.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's one of those things that because like we talked about before we started filming, I have family that lives in Northern Virginia and I try to avoid 66 at all costs. It's just like can't go there. So I don't envy that that part.
No, I was
Yeah.
just on that about 45 minutes ago.
Oh my goodness. I'm glad you
Yeah,
made it back in time to
yeah.
chat with us. And yeah, I think it's good to know. I'm curious a little bit about if you could just give us a couple of specifics about what your networking looks like. Do you engage in Facebook groups, answer questions, or kind of what does that look like for you?
Right, right. So I try to network in various ways. I try to think about, am I networking with other business owners or am I networking with potential clients? And those are 2 different places oftentimes. So I do belong to the Chamber of Commerce, a local chamber. And that's super nice for kind of business development reasons. I get to meet other business owners. But because I'm a B2C company, not a B2B company, it's mostly thus far I haven't gotten any direct leads from the chamber. So most of my direct networking comes from like vendor events, at community engagement meetings, kind of fall festivals, spring festivals. So places where the community, like where my typical clients go, and then I try to put myself in front of where they are,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
absolutely.
yeah. And then, I try to also network on social media quite a bit.
Hmm.
If you can, like, whether that's commenting on people's posts or providing some free tips or whatever. So, yeah, those are kind
Absolutely.
of the 3 most common.
Yeah, yeah, easy peasy. And I love vendor events. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite ways of networking and getting out in the community. It makes such a big difference having your face out there and being able to speak to a real life person and hand out
Mhm.
business cards or whatever. It doesn't need to be anything super fancy, but just
Mhm.
engaging with people and having that FaceTime is so powerful
Yes.
for the health and growth of your business. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So now let's talk a little bit about niching because that is primarily what today's episode is going to be focused on. And I brought you on specifically because I thought you had a really interesting niche. It's one that I see in groups in our industry that people talk about all the time, and they kind of shy away from this particular service. And so it piqued my attention that it's something that you feature as a service in your business, and that is selling decluttered items or selling unwanted items for clients. I know tons of people who are like, I did it. It was a nightmare. I don't do it for clients anymore. It's too much work and this and that. So I'm curious, since it's something that you value and do for clients, if you can kind of just tell us a little bit more about why you like to do that, and then we'll unpack kind of your process.
Sure. So, I totally understand where some people think this is a lot of work. It's not worth it. It is a lot of work. I'll start out by saying that. And why I like doing it is because I love the symbolism of stuff. I love the history of physical objects. I love the importance that some types of things add to the fabric of American culture. And for those reasons, and because, some stuff gets broken in transit to donation and it just gets mangled up and it's just, no longer useful. If it's something worth selling, I will offer to try to help to sell it and put it in the right hands of someone else who would own it and want it. So when it comes to that, because I have found that it only works for me on like an emotional and like a physical stamina standpoint if I limit it to only meaningful things that
Mhm.
I know are somehow important. So whether that's, name brand items or items from a particular event in history or items that are somehow meaningful. I don't sell just like kitchen gadgets, some regular household stuff from Marshalls or whatever. So it's always very carefully curated stuff.
Mm.
And then as far as how I do it, it kind of depends on what it is. If it's something that I can easily transport myself, sometimes I'll take it back to my house and I'll sell it from my house. If if it's, not too big or heavy. But if
Mhm.
it's something larger, then I always use Facebook Marketplace as a good starting point. I find like that's where a lot of I don't know, a lot of people go looking for the stuff, and I belong to a lot of specific groups, so like antique groups and pottery
Mhm.
groups and specialty groups. So I find that belonging to those groups is helpful. So I even like a quilting group. So
Mhm.
anyway, so yeah, I think just being careful about what it is that I agree to sell, managing expectations for clients. So what I'll do is I'll try to research how much something might go for on eBay, but I always look at the sold prices,
Mhm.
not what they're asking for. A lot of people go on eBay and they say, "Oh, something's going for $400," but that's what the seller is asking, not what the seller is actually selling it for.
Mhm.
So I always look at the sold prices, and then kind of manage expectations and tell the client, hey, this item has sold on eBay for $200, but who knows how long it took to sell that item. So I find that clients a lot of times don't know what they have,
Mhm.
and they say, really, this is something even worth selling. And then when I tell them, yeah, this is something worth selling, then I tell them, what it could potentially fetch, and they're just happy that it's being sold for pretty much any amount.
Mhm.
A lot of not many people are like, I must have, such and such a dollar amount for an item. So there's a lot of dialogue involved, and just trying to be realistic and say, hey, let's see if we get any bites. And I usually run an item for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then typically the listing kind of stagnates, and then you have
Mhm.
to renew it, and then and it's very much, if you know about social, I'm sure you know about Facebook algorithms and
Sure.
and how like clicks and all that sort of stuff matters. And,
Yeah.
sometimes things just fall so far down the totem pole of items for sale that, it just doesn't get the same viewership. But
Mhm.
yeah, but I find that clients really appreciate it. And I have a couple connections in different ancillary industries like direct buyers from antique stores,
Mhm.
auctioneers, appraisers, people like that. So sometimes if items are super unique, I'll reach out to those connections and also use that method.
Great. Yeah, there's some really great tips in there. Looking for the sold listings on eBay. That's so genius. I'd never thought of doing that before. I know it's a really simple thing, but yeah, of course, that would make sense to kind of give you a value. And I'm part of a what is this antiques buyer group on Facebook, and I've posted, if I have a client who has an old China tea set from their great grandparent or whatever from the early 1900s, and they think that it's going to get them such and such amount of money. I'll usually take pictures of the stamps and the set, and people will come back from those groups with all kinds of very interesting information that will let you know, like yes or no, it's actually valuable. So those are some great tips to share for anybody, just in case, because I feel like maybe if you do offer a service like that, it may be beneficial for your clients who have a bit more trouble releasing those items if they feel like, they're going to get something for it. Often that guilt
Yeah.
of spending money can be
Hmm.
hard for our clients when trying to
Hmm.
face the facts of letting things go.
Yeah. And that's true. Very, very true. I mean, some clients on one end of the spectrum don't realize something is worth selling, but then you're right. Some people do feel some relinquishment of that buyer's remorse or
Mhm.
guilt or whatever,
Right.
by recouping at least some of the value of it,
Yeah.
for sure.
Awesome. So, what would you say in general, since you have a lot more experience than I do doing this type of work? I'm in the camp that's like, it's too much work. I can't do it. So, tell me what you think the pros and cons are of selling items versus donating them.
Hmm. Well, um, the con, I guess pros would be you would get some money for something. So like we were saying, it would sort of address maybe hesitancy to let something go if you're able to even get $5 for something.
Mhm.
So that would be a pro. Making other people happy is a pro. One thing I do for clients is I have a binder and I have pictures of people who, because I belong to a lot of like thrift groups on Facebook. And what I'll do is I'll take screenshots of people who are like celebrating their thrift find, and,
Cool.
or their whatever their find is, and I'll say like, "Hey, look, this item could make somebody else really happy." And for example, there was this American Girl doll that somebody had, and American Girl dolls, they're not cheap.
Right.
And she said, well, let's just sell it and see if we can get $10. And I said, fine. So we did. And this little girl got it. And the mom sent me a picture of the little girl.
Oh,
She was sitting in that car seat and she just had the biggest grin on her face, all because she got an American Girl doll for $10. So, I think that's a pro too, is that if you sell stuff, you know who it's going to, and you can see the excitement on that buyer's face. So it's
mhm,
not just some abstract like place that the stuff goes to. A con would be it does take time. It really
mhm,
does. And you have to be patient. You have to wade through scammers. Sadly, so many scammers out
mhm,
there. Whether that's on Craigslist or Facebook or Buy Nothing or whatever.
mhm.
So have to really be aware of scammers, be patient. And then sometimes you have to have the space to store the stuff.
Mhm.
That can be an issue for people too, is they're like, I'm already suffocated with too much stuff. I can't like have a little store in my little corner here. Like
Right.
I just need it gone. So, if you don't have the physical space, that can be an issue too. Um, so yeah, those are kind of just some pros and cons. So yeah, that's kind of where my offering that service could kind of take that stress off of them, and
Mhm.
that's something that I can kind of handle for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the binder idea. I think that is just so genius and so sweet because it does exactly what we aim to do in helping our clients let things go, is just making them feel like there's a purpose for it. There
Mhm.
is that spirit of generosity, which I'm always trying to find solutions. So I love that idea. I definitely feel like I'm going to try to steal that a little bit, see if I can get some pictures of
Yeah.
people. I love that. It's such a great
As a
idea.
teacher, I love binders.
Yeah.
I'm like, any kind of, you know.
Oh my gosh, that's great. Okay, so since you probably have piqued some folks' interest, because I just want to reiterate for everybody watching and listening that as you're building out your business, it's important to have very concrete services that you offer. And you can think of it like niching if you want to, a little bit, like if you're a photo organizer or something along those lines. But what Caroline is talking about here is an example of a service that she provides within her organizing business. So it's not just about decluttering and organizing somebody's space, but there's additional things, additional services that we provide. So, with that in mind, if this is something that you listening or watching feel like, oh, this is a service I could provide to my clients, Caroline, if you could please just give us your top 3 pieces of advice to folks interested in offering this additional service. So, what should they focus on to do this successfully?
Uh-huh. So the one thing that's really helpful is to be knowledgeable about stuff. Be really observant. And when you're working with clients, if you see something in the corner that's, who knows, dusty underneath something else, but if you recognize it as something with potential, look at it and just get a closer eye on it. And the more aware you are of what's out there in the resale market, then the more you can connect what clients have with what buyers want. I
Mm,
think if you don't have that awareness, like I grew up with my mom did this, my sister did this. So I kind of grew up in that world of like repurposing and giving new life to old things and kind of going to antique shops and things like that. So I think that would be a big tip, is looking for unique stuff.
mhm,
Buyers like unique stuff. They don't, if they can go to Marshall's and buy it, then why would they buy it, resale?
mhm,
So I think looking for unique stuff. I think another tip would be to manage, like I said earlier, managing expectations for clients. Sometimes clients, on the one hand, they don't know they have something of value, but then other times they think they have something of value. And it's like, you might, just because it's old doesn't mean it's valuable.
right.
Sometimes people assume like, oh, my China set, like you were saying earlier, like China is really hard to sell.
Mhm.
Glassware is a little bit easier, but China is really hard to sell. And when
Interesting.
when we think about like how people entertain and how they use their homes and the activities that they undertake in their homes, then the stuff that is used, China is just not one of those things that a lot of people anymore, use, to a great extent. And
Mhm,
then also kind of think about who you're trying to sell to. Are you trying to sell to older ladies? Are you trying to sell to, moms? Are you trying to sell to men? So, think about the audience in which you can most readily pitch this stuff to.
Mhm.
Like I know in the antique groups that I belong to, most of those are ladies, but I also belong to a couple like tool groups and, um, motorcycle groups, because you never know.
Mhm.
I had a client once who had a 1975 Harley Davidson. And I was like, okay. So, you never know what people are going to have. And it's just good to know the right audience that might be interested in items.
Golden.
Yeah, those are some tips.
Love it. I love that. That's great. Okay, so we're gonna take like a hard pivot here because I like to offer my audience bonus material whenever I possibly can. And since today we're focusing on unique niches, I know you have one other niche that you specialize in, one other service that you provide that is pretty unique as well. It's not something that a lot of people do. And the hint is, since Caroline used to be an English teacher, that it has something to do with that. So can you tell us a little bit more about this other service that you offer that might pique the interest of some of our listeners and watchers today, subscribers, whatever you want to call them?
Yeah. So yeah, the other niche that I love to help folks within is academic organizing. It can also be called student organizing. But essentially, this is not so much physical organizing, but more so mental organizing. And as a teacher, I taught middle school through high school, and I saw the consequences of kids whose organizational strengths or lack of strengths impacted how they could demonstrate their knowledge and demonstrate their potential and demonstrate their best selves. And so I saw it as a teacher, and as a teacher, I tried to infuse some organizational skills. We had very very regimented binders. We had steps and procedures and methods in which we did things. We had very clear boundaries and expectations. But not everybody was like that. And I found that that's an issue for a lot of kids, is they don't know what's expected of them. They don't know really how to hold themselves in the classroom setting. And they don't know how to have that personal agency to feel like, they're cognizant of what they're doing. Sometimes they just like do stuff because they're told to do stuff.
Right.
So when I left teaching, I thought, well, that was the classroom. Now I'm on a new track. But then I had a lady come up to me one day, and this was about 2 years ago. She said, "Oh, do you work with kids?" And I said, "Well, I used to." But she said, "Oh, well, I have a student who's in high school and who needs some organizing help." I thought, So this kind of was born from client actually proposing it and asking about it. And then I was like, well, yeah, let's see how this could work. And I started with one student, and she was a freshman in high school, and we worked together all year long. And I essentially work on executive functioning skills, kind of that help students, function better in the classroom setting. And it kind of also, because I have an English background, sometimes it sort of morphs a little bit into kind of English development skills, but mostly executive functioning things like time management and working through processes and prioritization and stuff like that. So it usually works on like a 1 hour basis per week. And it's very dependent on the client, the student and the parent, and that there has to be buy-in to the process, because
Right.
it might, even though the parent might think this is great, and I might think, yeah, this is helpful, this is what you need. If the kid themselves, isn't into the idea, then I don't want to, waste anybody's time. So, but it's I've worked primarily with high school because that's kind of my field, but
Right.
everybody from ninth grade up to like freshmen in college, and usually I work with maybe 4 or 5 kids per year, and that's good for me because it's just a part of my business. It's not like a primary part, but there's a huge need for it out there. Anytime I meet new people and I tell them what I do and I mention academic organizing, I do see eyes light up, and people think, "Oh my goodness," So there's definitely a need out there for it. Yeah, it's really meaningful. I have a student who graduated yesterday, and I have his little graduation gift, and
Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. Yeah. So when you so I know you said that your first client, what happened sort of like it evolved organically and you sort of just were like, yeah, I have this background. Let me jump in and help. Are you reaching out to school districts now to talk to those?
Yes, I have to an extent, but that's actually a business goal of mine for this year is to build that up a little bit more.
Mhm.
Last year I did, I went to like a back to school night at a local high school. I do have friends in the education world still, so I certainly put out feelers and said, hey, if you ever hear of anybody in need, but I haven't yet like fully invested, you know, huge like marketing, like official development yet from like
Mhm.
a lead generation standpoint.
Sure.
But right now it's mostly word of mouth,
Yeah.
just in our local community. So
Yeah.
yeah. So, but it's really there's a different um, there's a different, I mean, I think all clients are appreciative of help, but when
Mhm.
the client is a young person,
Mm.
um, and you're not their parent, you're not their friend, you're not their teacher, but you
Right.
were a teacher, it really helps because you can like relate to them on a certain level because, I remember what it was like. Yeah.
Right. Right. Have you ever read the book, The Organized Student by Donna Goldberg?
I know, but I'm going to write that down right
You should, because that was like her whole career. She was a teacher. No, she was a librarian actually in New York in like the 90s. And so
now.
the
Nice.
book's slightly dated, but when I very first started out as a professional organizer, I read that book and realized that I, growing up, had so many issues with executive function because I was a very kinesthetic learner and I needed to be up and doing things. It was very hard to be lectured and
Uh-huh.
taking notes I was pretty good with and things like that. But auditory processing was really hard for me. Like I needed to be physically doing stuff. And so I had to work extra hard in school just to maintain like, a 3.8 or something like that. And I would stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning. I was constantly procrastinating, all these things. It was just like so many
Uh-huh.
light bulbs. I wish that I had you
Uh,
to help me, so I just guarantee you there are so many other kids out there and university students that could
mhm.
benefit from this service. So if there's anybody out there listening or watching, that's definitely something to consider. And I'll make sure to link that book down in the show notes as well.
Great. Great.
I just want to make sure that for everybody watching and listening today, that we can find you on social media. If you've got anything going on that you want to let us know about, now is the time so that we can connect with you in the future.
Yeah. So I have a website. I'm on the World Wide Web. It's just my business name, categoricallycaroline.com. And then I have Facebook and I have Instagram, also the same handle, categorically Caroline. I haven't gotten into TikTok yet. I cannot, I don't do any of that stuff. But yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. And as far as things coming up, I'm booking into July right now. So, I'm going to have availability for 2 sessions a week or a day. So I think that'll be helpful for people who need later afternoon sessions. And yeah, I've just had so much fun today. So I appreciate the invitation to be here and to chat with you and learn more about you. And yeah, I hope some of these thoughts were helpful.
Oh my goodness, so helpful. Yeah, and the pleasure is definitely mine. It's been so nice sitting and chatting with you. And I know that as people go back and listen or watch this episode again, that they will get so much more insight. There's lots of really good little tips in there for niching in services and different ideas. So thank you again, Caroline, for coming on the show today.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, thank you.
All right, fam, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks again for sticking around for this episode, and an additional big thank you and shout out to Caroline for coming on today and sharing all of her insight with us. I feel like I learned a lot today. I hope you did as well. Don't forget to check out all of the links and resources down in the description of the video, as well as the show notes of the podcast. There's going to be ways you can connect with Caroline down there, ways that you can connect with me. I really encourage you that if you've been sitting on the fence, you want to launch your business, you want to grow it in some way, to get in touch with me and get on my schedule. I have maybe 3 or 4 slots left for the month of July. At the time of filming this, it's June. So if you want to launch or grow starting in the fall, now is the perfect time to get on the schedule and get that ball rolling. And I would be honored to help you out. Don't forget to join my free Facebook group. And always, don't forget to have a fabulous day And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.